I've seen people get really, really messed up from the wrong things because, curcumin or lion's mane, the lion's mane boost BDNF. They don't say inhibit your 5-AR, activate your kappa opioid receptor. Right. They don't market curcumin as chelate your minerals, lower your iron. It's just all lower inflammation, gut health, brain health.
What is up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Here with Dr. Tyler Panzner to discuss the lion's mane fiasco. Tyler, what is your background for the audience watching?
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's in cellular molecular biology, and I got my PhD in molecular and cellular pharmacology. So, expert on how cells function, regular healthy homeostasis and disease states, but also how drug substances affect cell biology. And I kind of left the corporate side. I'm really big into genetics, personalized medicine. I went to the corporate job there, but now I kind of left. I'm doing my own thing. I call it holistic genetic health optimization. So imagine like 23andMe, but completely blow it out of the water. Super nuanced, hyper personalized. And I'm very vocal about how so many people are on the wrong supplements for their genetics. That's directly causing issues. And someone sent me this maybe a week or so ago. I've been swamped, haven't looked at it. I finally got to looking at it, and I kind of had a sort of a similar experience, much more minor of an experience, but happy to kind of share and help out.
Yeah, go into it. I'll know your experience.
Yeah, so I have most people take lion's mane, it raises BDNF, neuroplasticity, a lot of the functional mushrooms do, and I have a genetic mutation where I have lower BDNF by baseline. So, sunlight, exercise, lion's mane, psychedelics, all these things, intense exercise, all these things raise BDNF. So I joke, but I'm serious. I love sunlight. I love intense exercise. Been bodybuilding my whole life, and I love psychedelics.
Same here.
Yeah.
Besides lion's mane.
Yeah. So I gave the lion's mane a try, and day one I noticed some nausea, and I kind of pushed through it. But I kind of attribute that to the fungal cell walls had this protein called chitin that can cause issues. A lot of those functional mushrooms kind of give me a weird nausea type feeling, but I kind of pushed through it. I did it for 4 or 5 days, and I really didn't like how I felt. And after watching the video, it seemed like a much less severe case of that, but just kind of felt foggy out of it. That tenacity to attack the day was just gone. I'm normally very, very high energy, like, let's go attack the day. And it was kind of just sort of pacified in a way. What worked for me personally, I went from my boron dose from 3 milligrams up to 15 milligrams. And that kind of resolved some of my issues. I'm happy to go into 2 of the main mechanisms that I attributed it to back then. But I'm so glad I got exposed to this, because it seems like a lot of people are, including yourself, really fucked up.
I'm insanely fucked up, and I actually featured the other guy from Lion's Mane Recovery, I think he's like the worst case I've ever seen. Like, he's still going on 16 months, not recovered.
Was that Ryan?
Yeah, that was the other Ryan.
Okay, so 2 Ryans, gotcha.
Yeah, it seems like people, it's blowing up if you look at the search terms of everyone. Like, lion's mane is very hot right now, and it seems to be well tolerated by a lot of people. And then you have a case like mine where my whole life was basically derailed, still is derailed. So from your expertise, go into what you think happened and how someone could claw their way out in recovery.
Yeah, so the first thing that I attributed to was inhibiting the 5-alpha reductase enzyme.
Right.
So the enzyme that's doing that conversion of testosterone into DHT. And if you look at the side effects or things like finasteride, a lot of people use to block DHT. Too much of it causes issues. I heard Ryan mention the scalp tightening, which to me seems, okay, that could be, they use it for hair loss, and that's kind of one of the issues with finasteride. Sexual dysfunction, insomnia. poor memory. High blood pressure was one that's, if you look on like Google or whatever, any clinical stuff, they don't really mention that. But if you go and check the Reddit forums and stuff, you'll see a lot of people report of that high blood pressure. So I forgot if it was him or you. Now there's 3 Ryans now. Actually, I just realized that.
Yeah.
So I forgot which one of you mentioned when working out. I think it was maybe the other Ryan. How his heart rate is just through the roof. Like, and he has to go sit in his car afterwards because his heart is just beating out of his chest. So that's the first main mechanism I was thinking about, and that's why I personally use boron. So there's stuff like creatine, Tomget Ali, Tribulus. I think it's diosgenin is some phytosteroid kind of similar to DHEA in structure from like some yam species, or just taking straight up DHEA.
Yeah.
Like these all can induce activity. Like I think the study with Tribulus and Tomgat, it boosted, DHEA, all these things, and then they gave it a pharmaceutical 5-AR blocker, and it stopped the effects. So that's pretty much proving that it's inducing the expression and or activity of this 5-AR enzyme to boost up DHT. Anecdotally, I 5x my boron dosage for, 4 or 5 days or whatever after I kind of felt off, and I was able to, kind of claw out of that. Now, probably with a more severe case, might need some more methods to try and boost that than just the boron. That's kind of one of the more weaker ones, I would say, out of these other ones here. But the second mechanism I was thinking of was kappa opioid receptor binding. So kappa opioid receptors, anything that binds that, boosts prolactin, which lowers dopamine. And my experience with prolactin was saunas actually also spike up prolactin. And I'm very sensitive to prolactin spikes. It's also, when you ejaculate, that'll spike up as well. And like TMI, but like, after I get finished with my business, I'm like knocked out cold. My prolactin like spikes up super high. And I always felt, after saunas, I would feel very dysphoric and kind of just off for, 2-3 hours after I get out of it. And I'm like, everyone says this, like, I'll feel better than I felt before the sauna after that wears off. But it's like, why do I have this huge dip right when I get out towards the end of it? And I looked, it was the prolactin thing. So that's kind of just connecting the dots there for me. But no, prolactin directly related to loss of libido, sexual dysfunction, irregular periods. I didn't look too deep into the subreddit. I don't know if is it affecting primarily men or women or kind of a mix of both?
Mix of both for sure, but mostly men on there complaining, I'd say.
Yeah, and like weight gain, anxiety, depression, dysphoria, and dissociation. So just looking at, they kind of, both of these mechanisms are having that sexual dysfunction, like poor memory, feeling kind of just out of it overall, and like vitamin B6, ginseng. I'm sure you heard of cabergoline. Those are good ways to lower prolactin. And I'm curious, have you gotten any bloods done since this happened, or is anyone? I'm very curious if anyone's gotten prolactin checked.
I did pull bloods. My bloods look like someone who is in, post-finasteride issues is how my bloods looked, personally.
Was the prolactin higher? Did you get that one checked?
No, it was in range.
Okay.
But I already dosed Prami thinking, that was an issue before pulling those bloods. So it could have been out of whack.
Yeah.
But the genital numbness for me is like the real issue, because it's like I don't have sexual dysfunction. It's like more like I can get it up, but like it's numb per se. And then like the orgasm I don't really feel. So it's like, it's not that my dick doesn't work, it's like more problematic. It works, but like libido, desire, and then the numbness is there, which is kind of, I don't know where to attack that personally, other than obviously time.
Yeah, and I think there's also like a lot of the dopamine precursors, L-tyrosine, L-dopa, they can help raise the dopamine and also been shown to lower the prolactin. But being a personalized medicine expert, I'm personally thinking from a genetics perspective. I would love to see the genetic data to see, are there mutations in the 5AR or this opioid agonist receptor? Like, that's the only real reason I could think of why else would some people be completely derailed and sidelined from this, unless that receptor, that kappa opioid, there's mutations that can occur in receptors that make them hypersensitive or not sensitive enough. So considering that's an agonist, it activates it. I would think that could be a hyperactive sort of mutation where, the trigger's already 90% pulled, and that lion's mane really just sets it over the edge, and the compensatory mechanisms in the cells may not be able to reel that back in. And then it's probably something similar with the 5AR enzyme. I know there's a lot more study. I'm not actually sure of specific mutations for the kappa opioid, but the 5AR has been very, very well studied. I know for like hair loss, things like that. So there's definitely a lot of mutations there that affect the functionality of it. And I'm sure everyone's a unique flavoring. I'm sure some people, are 50-50, both mechanisms causing the issues. I bet some people might have the lower prolactin. Yours may be more along the lines of the 5AR. That's why the prolactin wasn't so much of an issue for you. Well, at least on the blood work.
Right. The blood work looked like, my DHT was 87, so it was still upper,
Now, how's that for your base? Like, do you have a established baseline to go off?
Yeah, it was about 15 points lower, so it took a hit. So I'm obviously gonna try and creep it back up and see if that helps me. But cognitively, I feel much better, where the other Ryan cognitively hasn't recovered. Physically, as far as my central nervous system goes, like, I'm stupid weak in the gym. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm basically back to where I was training in high school as far as the strength. I don't know if that's like PTSD related. Like, my nervous system is in this fight or flight, and it's just completely burnt. And like when I'm sleeping, it seems like I can sleep for like around an hour, but like I'm present. Like I'm aware of my surroundings. It's not really like a deep sleep per se. So like that's really like the scary issues on top of the the ED problem.
Yeah. And now, have you been adding anything in to try and boost up the DHT? Like, you're trying any like pharmacological type things, or more so just trying to wait on Father Time?
I'm trying not to like intervene too crazy with polypharmacy. So I did a little bit of pronanolone, DHEA. My testosterone is at HRT, so around 165, 200. I don't measure it super accurately. And then added in HCG, creatine. I'm on L-tyrosine.
Okay, so you're already on a lot of these things there. Yeah, interesting. And now those since you started those, have you really noticed that much of a improvement, or it's still kind of like a little more energy, but you don't feel like it's getting to the root cause of it?
So like cognitively, I feel much better. At first I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna work. Like the first 2-3 weeks, I could like I would read something and it just like wouldn't register, and I'd have to like reread it like 3 times. That has since improved, but like physically speaking, I think it could be more PTSD. Like my CNS is stuck type shit.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be so much of fight or flight. It might just be like post fight or flight, like post this, kind of post this traumatic initial thing that may have not been. It's weird because you didn't have this super high anxiety event on the line. It's not like you had a bad trip, it's not like that type of thing. It's more so like a slow burn, and then everything is just dramatically suppressed.
Well, I would say I had a quote-unquote bad trip. So I had like extreme panic attacks.
Oh, I did mention that actually.
Like level 10 panic attacks, like I've never experienced. And at first I was attributing it because I immediately tried to repair my dopamine. This was when I was more crazy with polypharma. I was like, okay, it's a dopamine issue. I'm going to go in there with 9-MeBC and try to repair it that way. I started getting panic attacks, and I was obviously, adding in all these things, pinning it on the 9-MeBC, but it was at lion's mane way after it half-lifed out. And if you go on lion's mane recovery, there are people having panic attacks like 3 months out from it. So again, a lot of people might tolerate it fine, but these are extreme issues that I'm dealing with. And I'm just like kind of throwing darts at the board with Father Time at this point. Like I've like backed off. I'm just, doing the neurotransmitter feeding and giving my DHT the best chance to boost back up there. But I don't really know. I'm just hoping that some like you said, some receptor isn't like permanently fucked. Like, could you induce epigenetic changes?
You definitely could. You definitely could, but I've been very aggressive polypharma biohacking throughout my life, and I'm sure you've been the same way. If you had a nickel for every time you thought you really fucked yourself up and you got better, like I would generally be shocked if this is 15 months is definitely a long time for some of these other people, but I would be genuinely shocked if there's really no recovery at all. It also depends on possibly the neuroplastic state of the brain at that time as well. Someone, like I mentioned, I have that mutation in the BDNF gene, so I battled with a lot of anxiety in the past because I had reduced neuroplasticity. So that means, in theory, the brain may have a harder time remodeling, making some of these connections. Because you mentioned something that was interesting, that the increased neurogenesis may have, from the BDNF, from the lion's mane, it may have like done some different wiring or circuitry type thing. It may not just simply be like, whether it's the enzyme, epigenetic silencing of the 5AR, epigenetic like pull inside of the cells, endocytosis of the opioid. It might not just be a receptor pullback, like with normal tolerances. So I wonder if some of these neurogen, I think it might be TBI, something like that. I forgot the name. Some of those really neurogenic peptides that people use, like for Alzheimer's, stuff like that, if that could possibly be of benefit.
So you thinking like cerebral lysin?
Yeah, something like that, perhaps. I couldn't see that making matters worse. I feel like
that's like my fear is like I add in the cerebral lysin and I go backwards because like unlike the other Ryan, and I feel so incredibly bad for the other Ryan. Like I can't believe like he's at what, month 16 of like what I was dealing with at like month 1.5.
And now has he tried some of these supplements that you were mentioning?
Yeah, I gave him everything I was doing.
Yeah. And
he was already doing a lot of it. So again, I fear.
Has he gotten bloods done? I wonder if his because a lot of this is pointing towards the prolactin, but that's interesting if it's not that high.
Yeah, I'll push him to get a panel done, but he's been through the whole Canadian medical system, which I'm sure is, spinning him in a loop.
Yep. Well, I mean, this is leagues and miles above of any conventional medicine, anything like that. You know what I mean? Right. So exactly. It's frustrating. And yeah, I'll do a little more research looking into this because I think of it's like over 1,000 people in that recovery group, right?
When I found it, because I didn't attribute it to the lion's mane at all. I was like sitting there like, what is it? And then I found that Reddit at like 280 members and it's now over 1,000.
Oh, and that wasn't that long ago then, right?
Right.
Oh, probably come your video or something. Probably a lot more people were like, wow.
Before my video, it hit 800. So it was organically stacking as you see everyone
That's been so recent. That's insane growth. Holy shit.
And that's a tiny little Reddit that he made. And he was the only guy talking about it. And like immediately I was like, oh my goodness, it's this lion's mane. And that's why everyone on Instagram is making it out as like the ultimate mushroom. Which for a lot of people it is, but my goodness, if you're one of those unlucky people, oh man.
Yeah, I personally don't recommend that to clients that I see that need more neuroplasticity because I experienced that, and I don't think this is a filler contaminant type thing. All these people trying all different brands. Yeah. It's definitely not that. I think it's the actual pharmacological activity of that molecule itself. I personally like CBD, magnesium, raise my BDNF. I take this cognitive cognitive probiotic to help boost BDNF, NGF. So I don't really suggest that to people as is, but I totally agree. And this is the exact problem I have. You know, I've been doing what I've been doing now, maybe 8 months or so, and just seeing how much, I don't say garbage, but people act like all of these things are completely riskless. Like, out of the people I work with that are already on supplements, I would say at least 50% are taking something that, you know, some holistic, like you mentioned the L-tyrosine. Like, I break down adrenaline 4 times slower than a normal person. So, like, I am crazy sensitive to tyrosine. And I see people put on that, or they'll put on something like a quercetin for histamine for gut health. And it's like, if you knew the genetics, this person cannot tolerate, like, you know, any molecule has multiple different mechanisms. And like, curcumin's an example I like to give. I've had women come to me, their hair falling out, extremely anemic, gutter low iron, ferritin. They're chugging iron supplements, like basically liquid iron every morning. And what do you know? They're on this crazy mumbo jumbo, 40,000% increased absorption, liposomal modified curcumin supplement for their joint pain. And it's like, that mechanism, you're pulling out all that. You're having your liposomal curcumin with your iron. You're pulling everything out. And they're going to be put on all these crazy protocols to try and kill a gut microbe. I'm like, no, it's the fucking curcumin. And it was another holistic practitioner. You know, they all mean well. It's just, this is where coming from the PhD side in pharmacology and applying that to, these are all drugs in my opinion. Whether it's anything, by definition, anything that alters physiology, cell biology, is considered a drug. Now, I don't tell my wife, hey, did you take your drugs this morning, talking about her I don't say it like that, but like, you know, I've seen people get really messed up from the wrong things because, you know, curcumin or lion's mane, you know, the lion's mane boost BDNF. They don't say inhibit your 5-AR, activate your kappa opioid receptor. They don't market curcumin as chelate your minerals, lower your iron. It's just all lower inflammation, gut health, brain health. And they don't say one mechanism may work for you, but there could be 3 other mechanisms, like an iceberg meme. You know, that may work, but all these other mechanisms don't make sense for you. So that's why I feel like my mission is, you know, whether it's diehard keto, carnivore, all these different low oxalate, this and that, or this supplement, that supplement. I'm here to say, all you people, these big pages, you're right and wrong for certain people based on the genetics. And clearly this lion's mane is adding to this. I'm definitely going to try to look into any other possible mechanisms, but it's interesting too that there's just really not much mechanistic data on it to begin with.
Yeah, and I feel like you said it best, is like, I could have rewired in some weird way, and it could just be that, honestly, where it's like, how do we measure, control, finite? You don't really know. You just hope it wires itself out. But I wanted to touch on cerebral lysine because we'll do a separate topic video into this. So